Well, thank you. This was very insightful. I think what I really appreciate about this presentation and around the topic of AI when people are sharing, sometimes they withhold kind of the behind the scenes or the information of how they're actually creating things. So it's refreshing, and I think it's trending overall this way to see the prompts you're using, the exact softwares you're using, and how you're generating these ideas, right? Um, so if anyone has questions, put them in the chat. We're gonna do a little bit of question discussion here for maybe the next 10 minutes. Um, what I want to start off with, and what we try to start out with every Code D Q&A is, um, what is computational design to you? How do you define it?
Hmm. It's a way of thinking, really. And it's a mode of thinking and a mode of connecting platforms and modes of operations, and a process of discovery. This is, I think, the beauty about computational design, because it's a creative process that allows you to create your own way of generating like progress outcomes, and your own way of like crafting the quality of the final result that you're like aiming to achieve. And so to me, is really one of the ways our creative process and creative thinking can unfold, and it's a very productive one.
So with how many, different AI tools that you've kind of showcased and that you've been using over the years, how has your interaction or kind of design collaboration changed with other folks? Like, I know you're experiencing that now with how you were talking about the students who aren't using AI, but maybe just like personally, how is it when you're collaborating with someone? Are these tools changing the way you're doing that?
Yeah, there's always so much focus on the process, more than I could ever imagine, honestly. And it's the beauty of it. But then it's really there are like a number of different ways I can respond to this question. To me, being able to use AI is really a tool for communication. As you said, I mostly interact with students, with young students in their sophomore year, approaching architectural design for the first time. So it's kind of like also a big responsibility to kind of undertake that approach right away. But when we use AI together and we start thinking together about architecture, right? I think that kind of compresses the distance between, my verbal communication, the students' verbal communication. There's also like a language barrier always between me and the rest of the world in my class. And so being able to comment and to react to visuals, I think is a super interesting way of communicating and of interacting with the students. And I think it does apply a little bit also in the research projects and in the collaborations with my colleagues, and having that as kind of like a digital, could be, yeah, digital artifact in the world, right? That we are able to comment on based on our knowledge and our background, and based on our kind of approach in possibly manipulating it, or like taking that specific outcome in one direction or another. I think it's all about communication, and how that's changing, and what's the opportunities that can open up.
Um, so this question can be viewed in a few different ways as well, but depending
I'm
on
scared.
what profession you are. Who do you feel is the author of the media that you're creating with these AI tools?
What do you think is the author? Who do you think is
Well,
the
I think the lawyers at most professional firms feel a certain way. And then, there's the way of, does the company who creates my pencil own the drawing that I create using that pencil, right? So I think there's two different sides of the spectrum and how I think about it.
Yeah, that's that's true. Actually, I feel so I don't want to be definitive in my responses and be like, we are the author, we are the creatives, we are the designers, we control everything. I think that everyone is very confused deep down, and we are trying to understand those things, and we are understanding those things day after day. And I think the effort is really trying to find space for authorship, trying to find agency and ownership of parts of the process. And I think it's a continuous effort in trying to find that space because um, if I think about that's a recurring conversation, how many renderings I've ever created in my career, and like seeing all those beautiful images that get generated from me because they are already trained to be beautiful and I have little control over that, right? So is my authorship in the words that I use for prompting? But algorithms are always opinionated at the end of the day. So how do we react to that? And how do we kind of negotiate that space, really? So it's not definitive. It's not, that's my ownership. I think that every time you kind of define a process and define a workflow, you own it. But at the moment, there are things that are out of our control and they will keep evolving in the near future for sure.
So we got a question in the chat asking, for generating videos, are you using Comfy UI or are you using other AI tools? What do you find the best?
So that's a good question because I experimented a number of platforms. Um, Not too much with Comfy UI yet because I focused a lot on back in the days, I would say on workflow definition in Comfy UI. Now with the desktop version, our lives are much easier, and I'm in the process of exploration right now. So I know the Comfy UI allows you to generate short videos. I can talk for the quality of them, or like I haven't yet gotten to the point to which I compare all the outcomes, with the same process using the same prompt and see what happens. Right now, I'm extensively using Sora, Luma AI, and Runway ML. And I've been going back and forth between the platforms. Sometimes Sora is good because if you have ChatGPT, you have everything in one platform and they communicate well with each other. I used Luma AI because it's very user friendly. And just the interface is great. The browser version is easy to use. But recently, with the latest update, I think the runway is pretty amazing. It's the best quality I've experienced so far. So that I just speak from my own kind of process of experimentation.
It's kind of this is more of an observation than a question, but it's an interesting time in that how, you had that Revit slide there where it's like this constraining program and like you're always waiting for the next version. But then when these AI tools come out and like there's a new version, it can like change how you work and there's kind of no going back also, right? Um, so
Yeah,
it's
there's that.
is there, do you have any thought of like there's something that you're looking forward to or you're hoping to see eventually that you feel will like be a big shift? Like, is there anything you're daydreaming that can happen?
Yes, so many things. Right now, I'm very lucky to be able to work with my colleagues, Taka Yoshikawa and Lee Su Huang. And together we are thinking about workflows and looking into those things. Really muscle memory on how to go from image to video to 3D model. We experimented a little bit with image generation, 360 videos and turning them into point clouds and trying to generate the mesh out of that. We have really like tried as much as we could, and we really dream of the day in which we'll be able to input an image and we'll export a floor plan, we'll export a tectonic system, and kind of more down to earth idea of materiality, because you know, like we are sketching now, and that's fun and that's great, but I think at some point we really, I feel that we'll feel the desire of like getting more consistent, and connecting more the ideas with something that can be implemented at the real scale. So we'll see, but
Yeah, I think
that's part of it.
yeah, and that speaks, I think, a little bit to some of the questions that popped up in the chat of, I think what Sarah's just presenting is a lot of it's very AI centered around design and like the idea of like sketching and like advanced sketching and high resolution sketching. And then there's like the process of AI as like a process. So like what we're talking about where the professional might want to see it more in terms of this isn't what was presented, what we're talking about today isn't really like asking AI to put dimensions on all of my floor plans, right? It's the same name of the tool, but it's a little bit different application. Um, so I think when it comes to the professional setting in that, I think there's a lot of different opportunities flying around with that and connecting these two, you know, at that bridge point is going to be a pretty key moment. Um, so we'll do maybe one or two more, but one of the questions I wanted to ask is what drew you to kind of the realm of comp design away from like more traditional like architecture? Like what influenced that decision to bring you away from that?
That's interesting. I think, well, curiosity for sure, but to me, it's like I feel that through my education, I've developed the approach like of observing, observing the profession, observing the discipline, observing reality around me. And when I see things going fast, I want to make sure I'm not left out. Um, and um, and that applies to any technology, honestly. But when you can access tools that are so high impact, I think that there's like to me it's absolutely appealing, but also I also feel a sense of responsibility in kind of demystifying those tools and understanding them, and then maybe eventually deciding not to use them. But I think it's kind of like a responsibility and a need at the same time, to know, to be aware of the possibilities, really. Because you know, like now using AI changes everything, changes the way we write assignment, changes the way we expect students to come prepared to desk crits, and those things need to change because it's inevitable. All the students have access to ChatGPT, so we all know that in some way or another they're gonna generate synthetic text. So if we are aware of it and we know the tools, right, then we can adjust the assignments so that, you know, we stay more focused on the important stuff, and I don't have to read kind of like this plastic kind of text, but I make it more productive. So it's yeah, I don't know, I can respond to that in a number of ways, but for sure, like interest, curiosity, sense of responsibility as an educator as well.
Yeah, what would you say? So there's probably a lot of students here, and I think you kind of what you what you kind of preach and how you're teaching is computation. But what would you say? What advice do you have to them if they want to be more involved with computation?
Well, to sign up to Code D and to tell all the friends that this is a very productive organization and super exciting. And I would say to you know, to be curious, to take challenges, and to try to approach things you don't understand, because that's the fun part. All of those aspects are to me like small design projects per se, and I think you can always bring your richness, that kind of like knowledge, and that becomes like a component of richness in the way you talk about stuff, you develop projects, you talk about the projects, and in general, you develop competency like visual competency, computational competency, technological, and I think it's, you know, you'll only get benefits if you use this approach. And it's beautiful when you have communities around you that are excited to talk about those things. So
Yes, totally. I think that's great advice. So, Sarah, I want to thank you for presenting, especially since you're in Italy, no, very late tonight. Thank you everyone for joining and asking questions and engaging. I did put a link in the chat to the Computational Design Award for those check it out, especially students. We'd love to see you submit your work in there and have it recognized. And then we're planning to have our next event in person in a few months, so be on the lookout for that. So thanks again, Sarah.
thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.